Hi all, welcome and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I have an absolutely heartbreaking story to share with you that I wish I could say you won't believe. But you've been watching the news and probably listening to my channel long enough that it may not even shock you at this point. It's a horrific story that came out of Toledo, Ohio on February 5th of 2021, involving the shooting deaths of two young boys and another little one who's fighting for his life after being shot by their mother's boyfriend. 23-year-old Crystal Phillips told reporters that she left her three sons at her apartment in the care of her boyfriend, Kevin Moore. She said she was out running errands for about an hour when she learned Moore had shot all three of her boys. Now, depending on the news source, the stories about how the boys were found are different. So, I'm going with the 911 calls and the police body cam footage that has been released. 5-year-old Amir Phillips, 4-year-old Ashton Phillips, and 1-year-old Gabriel Phillips all suffered from a single gunshot wound and were rushed to the hospital, where Amir and Gabriel died. 4-year-old Ashton was transported to Mott's Children's Hospital in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where he's currently fighting for his life. According to his father, Ashton suffered a gunshot wound to the face that passed straight through and dislocated his jaw. One news report says the boy's mother, Ann Moore, had an argument before she left the house to run errands, but Crystal told police that they were fine when she left. She said, quote, "I really have no clue what happened. We weren't on bad terms. There was no violence. There was nothing." The 911 calls were made by residents in the apartment building who say they heard the gunshots and saw that he had shot the boys. I'll link to the page with the police body cam footage in my description box that shows the police take Moore down. But I need to warn you, it's hard to watch. You can hear a woman screaming in the apartment complex and someone yelling, "Don't let him die." It was hard to watch without tearing up. I give the police tons of credit, though. When they arrested him and had him on the ground, after they learned he shot the boys, I bet it took everything they had in them not to stomp his head into the pavement. One of the 911 callers said she heard him shooting out in the parking lot too, at least 10 shots before the police arrived. Thank God no one else was killed. The boy's father did a heartbreaking interview with WTOL 11 News, saying he just misses his boys. He said 5-year-old Amir loved sports and helping his uncle fix things, and 1-year-old Gabriel had just learned how to walk. He said Ashton is currently in stable condition, but the doctors say they can't perform surgery on his jaw until the swelling from the gunshot wound goes down. He said they had to remove a portion of the side of his skull because his brain was swelling. He said even if Moore gets life in prison for what he did to his boys, it won't be good enough because he still gets to live and he'll never get to see his boys again. Absolutely heartbreaking. Now, I'm not going to attack the boy's mother in this video for bringing that complete and total piece of shit around her boys because she's already going through hell and nothing anyone can say can undo what has happened. She now has to live in the hell she allowed into her life. But I can use her life decision as an example of what not to do. I know you're probably sick of hearing me say this by now, but I've said it before, and unfortunately, I'll say it again. When you date thugs, you date death. That's from the YouTube channel AFC Podcast, a YouTuber who advocates for abused and murdered children. How do I know she was dating a thug? Well, let's look at his rap sheet. According to the news outlet The Blade, Kevin Moore had a history of violence in the state of Florida. A history. So, I would imagine if someone wanted to find out his criminal history, they could probably do a search online. I'm sure it was no secret. His history included a 2017 conviction, which is public record, for third-degree felony domestic battery by strangulation, second-degree felony tampering with a witness, and misdemeanor resisting an officer. He was a thug. He wasn't a good person. He did bad things to people. And he didn't belong around children, especially with a weapon. I'm curious. I thought when you were convicted with a felony, you weren't supposed to own a firearm or even have one in your possession. Not that I'm dumb enough to think a convicted felon is going to follow the law, but why in the world would he have a gun at her apartment? What the hell was he involved in that he needed to carry a gun? Unless it was hers. But I don't want to think she'd leave a gun in her apartment with a convicted felon. If she even knew he was a convicted felon. Maybe she never bothered to do a criminal background check on the guy before she started dating him and bringing him around her young kids. But if it wasn't her gun, don't expect me to buy that she didn't know he had it or why. I have a question. Why don't women do criminal background checks on men before they date them and bring them around their children? If you do, high five. You're excused. But why don't the rest of them? Is it because they don't want to know? Maybe I'm just being mean. Let's say all women do. They all know exactly who they're starting to date and who they will eventually be bringing around their children's lives. I'll give them all a pass. I have another question. If they already know they have violent pasts, why would they date them? Is that really the best they can do? A low-life piece of shit loser who uses violence to get his way? Really? And that's better than being single? Is it just me? I don't know. Maybe I'm a snob. But I'd rather be single as single can be than bring that shit into my life or my children's lives. There ain't enough desperation in existence for me to sink low enough to accept that into my life. So why do women? I've known them myself, and I've covered story after story of women who apparently think they aren't worthy of more than someone who's violent and has done time. Why do people always want to believe it won't happen to them? Past behavior is the best indicator of future behavior. Deny that at your own peril. So when Crystal Phillips says she has no idea what happened, there was no violence, nothing, I have to question that. Was she referring to their relationship only? She must have been, because there was violence, well-documented violence, in the form of a strangulation, which brought about a conviction in court. So, either she never knew about it, because she never checked this guy out, or because he didn't strangle her. Well, that was in the past. It didn't happen to her, so that's good. Glad to hear it. One more question. If the violence didn't count because it didn't happen to her, will it count now that it happened to her children? Just curious. May her precious boys rest in peace, and may Ashton make a full recovery and find a way to somehow forgive her for introducing hell into their lives. I pray she and the boy's father find the strength to make it through this, along with everyone who loves those boys. It was a tragedy that didn't need to happen. Lives that shouldn't have been lost so soon. If you're single, especially if you have children, learn from her mistake. Don't let it happen to you. Protect yourself and your children at all cost. No relationship with a man is worth trading your children for. Criminal background checks take minutes to do. Minutes. Tell me you're not already looking him up on social media, trying to find out if he's still talking to his ex, or any other girl for that matter. Go ahead, try it. I'll call BS on that every time. We all do it. So take some of that time and check out what you really need to know. Is he dangerous? Does he have a criminal history? Is he a bad person to bring into my children's lives? That's what you need to know, up front. If he's still talking to his ex, you're going to find out the hard way eventually anyway. That may break your heart, but it's not going to get your children killed. Date smarter, people. Date smarter or don't date at all. It's bad enough that people with no criminal histories or histories of violence can rise up out of nowhere and hurt you. Don't seek it out. You say you love your children? Prove it. Every single day. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you on my next video.